Good. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Season 3, Episode 14 of The Movement.
The movement.
We are officially live and ready to get this show on the road. Looking forward to another great topic today, an important topic, that is for sure. First of all, let me go ahead and introduce everyone who's in the building, starting off with Ramzi Ali in the back, my nephew, always on the ones and twos for this show, so we appreciate him and all that he does. And then to the right of me, you got the Cuzzo, Big Hamza T. We appreciate him. He's in the building. Of course, you got myself, Omar T. And then to the left of me, you got little big bro, Yusuf T. He's here and he's ready to deliver another great episode as well. Usually in the back doing the ones and twos, but we appreciate him today for being here next to me. And then our guest for today is a familiar face. She's been on the show already once, and now we had to bring her back because of the fact of that she's almost like a centerpiece of the topic that's been going on. So first of all, shout out to Noor Sami. Go ahead and give her a round of applause. She's in the building. A young leader, soon to be, inshallah, going to be doing great things in this world. Looking forward to it. So shout out to Noor. We appreciate her and all that she does. So today's topic, we titled it Taking a Stand. We're going to let her dive into what's been going on. But basically, with all the things happening in Palestine, U of M, they have students there, they have organizations there that, standing up for what's been going on in Palestine, the genocide, and speaking on it. And let's just say the reactions from the university and from different organizations happening at U of M was not one that you expected, or at least maybe. I don't know. Maybe they did expect it, maybe they didn't, but it wasn't welcoming. And so we're going to dive into that. And we're going to talk about that. So before we even get into that, though, be sure to follow us on all of our socials. You have YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Oz Media. You can listen to our shows later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. If you want to call in, you want to chime in on this issue or just, give your 2 cents on it, the number is 313-306-1750. Again, 313-306-1750. Shout out to the sponsors, Balkan House, Juice Box, Qahwah House, BC Adhesives, Specialty Medical Center, Hanley International Academy, and Sidr Bees. We're going to start off with the best place for honey, Ramzi, which is Sidr Bees. We appreciate Osama and everyone over there for their support. We're going to officially then get the show on the road. So shout out to Sidr Bees.
All right, Yusuf, it looks like we have a little dilemma in our hands. We have this deliciously smelling sabaya right in front of us, but it looks like we're missing one important thing.
Yeah, it looks like we're missing some asal, some honey.
And you know where the best place to go to for honey? That is Sidr Bees. Sidr Bees is a remarkable company that stands at the forefront of the honey industry. With an unwavering commitment to quality, being authentic, and sustainability, Sidr Bees has carved its name as a trusted provider of premium honey products. The company's dedication to preserving the purity of honey is evident in every jar they produce. Sidr Bees sets a standard that goes beyond taste. It's a brand that captures nature's essence and brings it to the discerning consumers who appreciate the true goodness that honey offers. Sidr Bees is not just a honey company, it's a testament to the beauty of nature and the passion to deliver excellence in every drop.
All right, we're officially back, ready to get this rolling. That's a great question. So that Noor just asked about, the other people who are here. So they're both pretty much in college. Hamza is in Wayne State as well. Yusuf is in the IT program, so trying to finish that. So they're going to be here, maybe chiming in, but mostly the conversation is going to be with you, Noor. So first of all, let's just check in with you. See how you've been. I think last year around similar time, I feel like you came around here, maybe a little bit later. But anything's changed. What's new with you? What's been going on in Noor's world?
Yeah, so aside from all the craziness at the university on, a public-facing level, I am about to graduate in April, which is pretty exciting.
Congratulations. You want to give that a round of applause too, Ramzi? That's awesome. That's awesome. Big milestone.
I kind of mentioned to you before, but I do I major in medical anthropology, and most of my research kind of encircles this. I do burn pit research in Iraq, and burn pits are essentially just trenches that are dug in the ground to where if you have military deployment sites there that can't use public infrastructure to dispose of their waste. They can't use dumpsters. So they dig these trenches essentially, and they dump everything from battery acid to tires to crap and other
Yeah.
things there and can combust it all with jet fuel, which kind of releases these toxins. And I study the toxins and their impact on like individual bodies and like health in Iraq specifically. So I've been taking some steps with that. I went to a few conferences in Boston and Toronto to speak on these matters. Met some really cool people, alhamdulillah, and applying to or I'm working toward graduate adjacent levels of
Studies. Yeah.
To continue this, inshallah.
Inshallah. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing about that. You know, we want to make sure people kind of have a background with you and what you bring to the table and the knowledge that you bring as well. So, you know, with that said, you know, you're currently at U of M, Ann Arbor. Inshallah, going to be graduating this upcoming spring semester. Looking forward to that. So let's start off with what's going on. Like, how did this all started? I mean, I know like student groups at U of M, I guess, weren't too happy with the university's response to the genocide happening in Palestine. So I guess what exactly was U of M's reaction and what roles did you play in the whole situation in terms of calling them out for it? So maybe like, you know, tell us back to the beginning into like, you know, everything and kind of how it all started and everything else in between.
For sure. So I'll take you all the way back to the beginning, to the founding of our organization. So our organization for Palestine, our SJP chapter at UMich, is called SAFE, Students Allied for Freedom and Equality. And this chapter was founded in the early 2000s at the onset of the Iraq occupation. It was a platform built by Muslim and Arab students that were advocating against the U.S.'s intervention in Iraq. So it actually did not start at all as a Palestine-focused thing, and it continued, to kind of work in other circles that kind of pertains to social advocacy, whether it's different the civil war in Syria, the situations in Yemen, the civil rights movement. For sure inspired a lot of like the frameworks of which we kind of operate. As well, very inspired by our POC predecessors that organized at this university and faced similar backlash. And this backlash that is happening right now and that happened at the founding of, this organization has kind of been a pattern. We've not seen a kind of progression in university administration reactions toward our needs and demands. Just to kind of put this in perspective, one of the founders of SAFE, which is the student group that I'm a part of, was arrested by the FBI in what we call the Fishbowl, which is like a place where we kind of like study at the university. It's like a gathering area. He was arrested by the FBI in this area. And
how long ago was this?
This was in like 2000, 2003.
Okay.
He's now a lawyer. He works in Japan. But the surveillance and the, I guess, university-backed campaigns against student advocates from the early 2000s, from like, 9/11 era upwards until like right now, has been just completely predictable. So we completely predicted their actions and reactions, and everything that they're doing, they have done before. I know today we're going to talk about, just like the entire experience that I underwent with like the doxing sprees and everything. But even this, like, before there was like Canary Mission, for example, which is like a platform for, doxing students and to make them, basically they create profiles for you and they rate your name and they attach your photo and they kind of, the entire premise of that platform is to make students and professors and like public speakers that advocate for Palestine unemployable. Like that is their stated goal. And so now we have Canary Mission and it's all a rave, but Canary Mission wasn't even the first or 10th, platform that was used to suppress Palestine advocacy in U.S. campuses. Before that, in the early 2000s, there was the Jihad Watch List, for example, that served the same purpose. And just want to just quickly say, like you mentioned that their purpose is to unemploy you, but
that's their purpose that makes it legal, when all reality is not just unemployment that you might be facing. It could be
Yeah.
harassment, it could be physical abuse, it can be obviously verbal abuse that comes along with it. It's just, their way of saying that this is what they're trying to do is just a way of making it seem like it's just that, when really there's a lot more that comes along with it.
Of course, and with these platforms, and just like outside of like these platforms, if you have a marked identity, if you are Arab presenting, if you are a Muslim woman that wears a hijab, even on campus when I'm not wearing my kufiya, I am still a target, because my hijab is essentially my identifying marker, which has. Which puts me in a place to be perceived by them as, the other, the marked. And similarly, like we heard the story now 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago, about the 3 students at Brown University, 3 Palestinian students that were not in a protest. They were not, advocating for Palestine in a classroom. They were not, attending like a Board of Regents meeting. They were just standing and talking to each other. These are 3 boys that grew up together, and they were just enjoying their time out, somewhere in the city. And someone opened fire on them for no reason other than the fact that they are Arab presenting and they are Palestinian and they were speaking Arabic. So you don't really have to be on a platform for doxing. You don't have to really be on a platform, in a place where you're, outspoken. You can just exist visibly as an Arab or a Muslim presenting person, and this renders you the subject of harassment, physical, verbal, and, with regards to employment and other, prospects of.
Yeah. So I guess taking the timeline to now, where we're at now. So then, what started this spark of outrage from the university and from others, from other organization, like kind of what started now in this recent, situation?
Yeah. So just to bring it into what happened in October 7th, around that time. Actually, on October 7th, that exact day, I was in Boston. I was at a conference, and I finished the conference and was just exploring the city with one of my friends that is local to the place. And we were just walking around, and we were both hijabi. And it was just like, I didn't know what was going on, to be honest, because like when I'm like traveling, I don't really check my phone very often.
Yeah.
And then I just like kind of feel all these stares and just weird, like vibes on the streets, and it's a really busy city and stuff. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's just like casual Islamophobia here. It's okay,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it before.
Casual Islamophobia. Boston is one. I mean, it was one of those cities where people do say, "Watch out for Boston."
Yeah. And so when I found out what happened, and toward me coming back, returning to Ann Arbor, things on campus, like the environment, the tension on campus, you could literally cut with a knife. In the very first few days, we were just taken aback. We didn't even, we couldn't process. I mean, we were not short-sighted. Like, we expected this to escalate further, and that this is going to be something that we have to build endurance for, and this is going to be a long battle. We were preparing for that mentally, but we could not, like, even imagine the type of reactions and the disgusting actions that were, going to come forward in the coming weeks and months now. But in the very beginning of this, before we were able to, organize and mobilize with other student groups and form the coalition, it started off with tabling. Zionist students that are part of student organizations, like Students for Israel and Halal and all of these other factions would table in university places and kind of attach our org's logo, and then put safe supports rape, supports murder, supports baby killing, this and that. And they were going very hard on public defamation platform.
Yeah.
And some of them were kind of just following Muslim women around. There were a lot of cases of stalking, just people I don't even know where to start. The first week was just kind of very like all over the place, and everyone just wanted to emphasize their like perspectives, whether they're pro-Palestine or like Israeli adjacent people. Everyone was kind of pushed by a social pressure to say something about this. So the university climate right then and there was extremely tense and extremely polarized and polarizing. And this wasn't just like outside in public areas, you know, whatever, it was in the classroom as well. A lot of my professors felt the need to like speak about this or like make a comment, you know, two sides or whatever, all those like little things that we're used to seeing by like politically correct people. Yeah, like it kind of like censorship in the classroom started to increase. And a lot of things, you know, happened with that. But then just moving forward, when we were able to like just, I was gonna say when we were able to process our emotions, but I really don't think that we even had the time to like to stay to actually have like an hour or like a day or two where nothing has happened and we can kind of feel our feelings. Cause like we've had like, if you go on our Instagram, our safe Instagram, and like look through all the events, we've had over 68 events in the past like 7 weeks.
That's crazy.
From like teach-ins to actions to like phone banks and other things, and we've been on the you know the run for a long time now. Not on the run. That's
on the clock or
on the clock. Yeah, you got that. Okay, so yeah, so we've been really busy, but at first it was just you know within our you know student justice in Palestine advocacy group within SAFE, but then like we started to just kind of like naturally, when people of color from other communities perceive what is happening in Palestine, they see themselves in that situation, and they know innately what's like who is like on the side of, you know, the oppressed and who is the oppressor. That was very clear to many people, because this is like, to us, it's like our community, this is not the first time that we see this, but this is definitely the biggest, you know, inflow of just all of the videos and all of the pictures and images of just like atrocities, and people were kind of like internalizing this and seeing it for the first time, and this radicalized people. And so our coalition started to like spontaneously form. First, it was us and the GEO, which is the graduate union at the University of Michigan. They have been a huge help. They kind of went through a similar battle with the university earlier this year because their contracts were essentially unlivable. Like their employees, students, and essentially teachers. And Ann Arbor, you know, living cost is kind of insane, to be honest. And they went through a long and tumultuous battle with the university over that, and they have been such an immense help in organizing us and helping us structure our goals and movement moving forward. And we were also joined by a bunch of other like affinity orgs and legacy orgs, like and just over 70 student organizations from different, you know, student groups, different perspectives, different identities, like such a diverse scene. And this is something that like I've wanted to see like materialize since I first entered college. Like it's so beautiful when like I'm sitting in a planning or in an organizing meeting, and I see like people that I've never met before, I've never heard from before in the university, and we all look different, and we all come from different perspectives and different struggles, and we're just sitting here united and organizing towards something that we believe is we take it personally, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm not Palestinian, like you know where I'm from because I'm very loud about that, but like I take it personally, you know? Native Americans that organize with us take it personally. Oceanic students take it personally. Latinx students take it personally. Black students take it personally. All of this has been taken on by so many people, and it's so like, it's it's the most beautiful sight to see. And although the circumstances that brought us to this point are unfortunate, I think if it's one thing that has been, beautiful that came out of all this, it's our coalition. It's we called it the Tahrir Coalition. And Tahrir, of course, is an Arabic word, so we wanted to give, although it's like a coalition that is focused on collective liberation, and it's not, we hope that it doesn't continue to focus on Palestine and branches out to like other liberation struggles and issues of focus. But we wanted to keep the rootedness of it being like of it starting from like this cause, and so we attach the name Tahrir to it. And Tahrir is the word in Arabic for liberation, and it is in Arabic, but it is something that kind of is our collective goal as people from different identities that experience oppression in different ways. And so it's a very meaningful organization to be a part of, and it is growing, it is beautiful, we are improving, we are structuring and restructuring, and these are some of the brightest, most talented, most strategic, brightest students that are not in the university, just like in the country as a whole.
And from all different backgrounds.
From all different backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's like so awesome.
That's awesome. I'm going to get these guys' 2 cents right quick of what she basically just kind of laid the foundation of kind of what's been going on. I mean, obviously we're going to dive into it more, but Hamza, you go to Wayne State. Maybe you can give your comparison of kind of something that you've kind of seen there and your just whole overall thoughts.
Honestly, there's similar stuff happening in Wayne State as well. There's protests happening. There's there's students getting dropped out of college because of them attending protests. There's
Really, at Wayne State?
Yeah, at Wayne State. Yeah, there's already a few stories about people getting kicked out of Wayne State. And there's been protests happening in Wayne State as well. Friendly protests all around Wayne State. A lot of people attending, skipping class to attend this. It's an important matter, and we got to stand up for our brothers and sisters in Palestine.
Yusuf, what are your thoughts?
When I hear these stories, as we probably all became numb to them at this point because this has been going on for many years, and it just sucks to see. But in reality, this is exactly why we keep doing these protests. We keep doing these marches just to show recognition. And for example, if let's say we stop doing it, they're gonna continue. Like, if we stop doing what we're doing, it would have been way worse than what it is right now. We all can agree on that. So that's all I gotta say.
Yeah. We're going to continue on. I think this is a good time to give Noor a break because we got a couple more questions. Like this, again, this topic is really focused on, the reaction. Obviously, a lot of people got information on what's going on in Palestine. This is more of like the school, U of M and Arbor's reaction of what's been going on. So we're going to give a shout out to BC Adhesives, a quick break, and then we're going to continue on where we're at. So shout out to BC Adhesives. And now we're going to talk about how did Noor Sami become the center. Her and Selma, became the center of a petition that came out. That's how I knew about it. So interesting situation there. So shout out to BC Adhesives, and then we're going to keep things rolling.
I believe it's very important for every team to stick together. And what I do here at Oz Media to make sure we are all one glue is I stop by BC Adhesives.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what it's used for.
Nah, Yusuf, it's not. But you can go to BC Adhesives for all your industrial adhesives needs. They do food packaging, book binding, product assembly, and many other industrial services. So if you're in need of adhesives for your business or having trouble with your current adhesives applications, you can contact them by phone 1-888-679-9825 or go to their website at www.bcadhesives.com.
All right, we're officially back. Again, thank you, Noor, for being here today and for sharing what's been going on. So, like I was saying before the break, so the reason why this was brought to my attention was through a petition that was being forwarded and it had to do with the defamation of character and the stuff that was going on with you and Selma, who we were going to have on the show, but she's out of town. Hope she's doing well. Shout out to Selma for also being a strong supporter of what's going on as well. So tell us a little bit about that. Like I said, this is how I knew, and when I seen it, I was like, Noor. I was like, what's going on? Like, oh my God. And then so I started to do my research and started to read into the stories, and I was like, oh, I did not even know this was going on. And then I seen some videos. Like, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. So like, how did it get to that point where Noor and Selma were, in the center of this all?
Yeah. So I guess it all started in January.
Okay.
We're gonna go back to January.
Yeah.
This is kind of a pattern with me where I have to like tell like every single part of the story before I get into.
Which is good, because some people might be like, why is this or why is that? So kind of, crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
Yeah. So in January, Vice President Kamala Harris visited campus, and she had a speech or a talk or a panel thing going on where she was talking about environmental justice and environmental causes in the U.S. and how the Biden administration is progressive in that sense. And so we gathered, we hosted a counter protest with some other student orgs to call out that hypocrisy, because the Biden administration has basically approved more pipeline drilling, activities in indigenous territory more than any other administration in U.S. history. So it's very hypocritical that she was coming to talk about environmental justice and simultaneously doing all of these things that are like essentially harming the environment and furthering the displacement of indigenous people in the U.S. And of course, Kamala Harris is a staunch self-proclaimed Zionist. Her husband is a Zionist. She is very open about it. And so where we were coming in from, the angle of SAFE, our student group in this was talking about how Israel partakes in greenwashing, essentially, which just basically like environmental destruction in different means. Their entire philosophy, like in the beginning of their Zionist project, was that they made the desert bloom, their presence in this barren land. We've heard the phrase "a land without a people for a people without a land," and we made the desert bloom kind of has the same connotation, where it was their presence that made historic Palestine finally flourish, as though it's not had thousands of years of progression before this. So we protested against her presence there. We held signs and statistics about the different campaigns Israel has had and the different measures of environmental destruction that colonialism has, materialized on indigenous territory in Palestine and on Turtle Island. And yeah, like I was leading this protest along with Senma and a few of our other friends. And, a few months after this, we were doxxed. We had Canary mission profiles formed in our names and our images. Alhamdulillah, they used a good picture of me, so I'm not that.
You looked at it, you're like, it's not bad.
Senma too. And so they kind of talked about this, and they said everything that we did in a very criminalizing way. Basically, what they do on Canary Mission is they take your actions, your individual actions, and then be like, this is what happened in this case. And then they write another paragraph. They're like, oh, SAFE means SJP, and SJPs have historically been anti-Semitic, and they have called for rape and assault and baby murdering and all of these things, and listing all these like criminalizing things that don't have anything to do with your specific action, but they're in the same paragraph. So if someone should read it, they're going to make that association between you and these horrendous things. And so this is kind of what happened. Got our Canary profiles circling. It was scary at first for me personally, because like obviously applying to grad school, they're gonna see this and they're gonna be like, what, whatever. But I was kind of like able to like brush that off as to being something that I could use for my advantage, because I work with environmental militarism, and I can like easily argue to like in a job interview or like with the grad school admissions that I was protesting against the Biden administration because of their influence on environmental militarism. and whatever their actions that further this. So I was like kind of fine in that campaign. But what happened more recently, it was kind of funny. But basically, like this entire situation has kind of like really derailed me academically. Like as a person who is a displaced, person, I'm from Iraq. I was born and raised there. I left Iraq when I was 8 years old, and I moved to Syria. And when the civil war in Syria started, I came here. Very short story of like weird stuff that, like a lot of things happen that are embedded in that narrative too. So, when everything started happening in this campaign of genocide in Palestine, I started to see the images and relate it to myself, into my experience. Like my father and his brothers and my grandfather were in Abu Ghraib, which is known as being one of the worst prison experiments in modern history. They were tortured, they were assaulted, they had rabid dogs chase them, and when they reached their legs, they kind of stopped, and just so many exercises of torture by the U.S. military that my father endured in his body. And I see the marks of this on him. And so when I see IDF soldiers and settlers urinate on dead Palestinian corpses, I see American soldiers as they did that to my dad while he was alive. When I see pictures and videos of small children crying and running away in the sand, I see myself as we were moving in the peripheries of Baghdad at the time of, the physical occupation. And just these images started to kind of like really have a personal impact on me, and it kind of took away my focus in school and broke at my endurance. But at the same time, like I wasn't focused at school, but I was like super hyper focused and invested in our movement. So instead of turning in my assignments and my essays and whatever I had to do for my like whatever classes, I was working with a bunch of people to organize teach-ins, because I'm the education director on SAFE. I've been for the past 3 years. And essentially what we do is to kind of like do like teach-in events, host speeches, and other like find different means to educate people. And we were like kind of really hitting it off with this. We had some people in our group start a book club, which has been a really efficient way to like start a dialogue in campus communities of people that aren't really as familiar with this. And we've been doing this for years, like organizing educational events and everything. Like this is just like what our committee does. But in the past few months, because our community has grown so much more, and people that aren't necessarily familiar with the fundamental, existence and goals of Zionism and like the structures of the state of Israel and like the Palestinian plight, we had to like restructure our events and our teaching style to accommodate to like such a growing influx of people in our community. And that of course takes a lot of time. And it's one of the most beautiful things and one of my biggest accomplishments, I feel like, at the University of Michigan has been in the past 2 months. Not because it's like the most I've ever done, but it's because I feel like with the amount of people that now show up to our events, it's really rewarding to feel as though like the knowledge that I work with my group to produce someone else would take that with them at like when they leave the door and spread that to like their communities and their circles. So it was all, that's kind of been the pattern where I kind of like have been not the best student, not a model student, but like really focusing my energies here. But toward like the last stretch of the semester, I kind of like had to start, doing schoolwork, and I was kind of like finally building my endurance. And it was on Wednesday night. It was 8 p.m. and Salma calls me. She's like, "Yo, Beast." I'm like, "Hey, hi." It's never good when Salma calls me. I was like, And she's like, "So, there's a website, there's a Twitter. Why did I say that?
Yeah.
There's an X page that it's called Stop Anti-Semitism, and
I think I've seen this video, by the way.
Yeah. Basically, like they made a tweet about how. I didn't explain to you what the tweet was, essentially. But, I have to backtrack a little more to get into the tweet. Anyway, sorry.
It's okay.
So, basically, our coalition There was a student ballot at the university on the central student government that was on Palestine. And basically there was one petition that was like pro-Palestine, and then there was one petition that was not pro-Palestine. And so both student groups were like advocating and, getting their, mobilizing their communities to vote on these petitions that were open to the university. And they, like the Zionist students on campus, went crazy. Like they raised something like $50,000 in like 24 hours from their different external funders. And they brought like a helicopter plane. I'm so serious.
Yeah.
With like an ad, like vote for like AR-26, which was like what their petition was called, and vote no for like our petition or something. And it was so crazy, like coming out of class and seeing a freaking helicopter. Like, I'm so sorry. Like we I don't know how they're like affording all of this.
Yeah.
Like we raised for legal funds when police were brutalizing us, and kind of like we had like a demonstration on November 17th at Ruthven, which is like the administrative building in Ann Arbor where the president's and regents' offices are, and the board of regents' offices are. And that protest, that demonstration, was extremely violent. The university police force, the DPSS, is a private police force that is bought by the university. And we were maybe like 300 students. They called in 10 different police departments from neighboring counties to come in. There were over 50 cars in the premises of this small building with like 300 students, and so many things happened. If you remember, like my friend who was with me the last time I was on the show, she's also a leader in this group, and she was brutalized.
I saw
Physically brutalized.
Yeah.
Some of them were taken and kind of cuffed to the ground for just entering the building. Like hijabi women had their hijabs ripped off. Physical force was used on like students. Like we're your students. We're who is paying for this police force with our tuition dollars. We have every single right to be on a public property, public building that is supposed to be open from like, I don't know if it's like 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m. or something. But it was like we were there at 2, and it was supposed to be open for the public at 2. It's a public building. Like it's within our right to be there. But they were blocking us. They were harassing us.
Were the doors locked, or were they open but they just blocked you guys?
The doors, some of us were able to get in, and then they blocked the doors. And then there's a group of us in, and there's a group of us out. And so we were like, people were pulling the doors, trying to enter the building so we can like meet with our other, friends, because like we don't trust like a group of like 20 people in there with like 40 cops. Like we don't know what's going to happen. We need, people to be together because we protect each other. And in this pattern of like relying only on our community to like protect us has been so ingrained within us in the past 2 months because of the police brutality that we have been experiencing on campus as people of color.
So you right now, you feel like that you are not protected?
Oh, absolutely not. Like aside from the doxing thing, which I will get into now, so many things have happened to me personally that have made me feel extremely unsafe to be on campus alone, walking from class to class, and so many things happened that kind of threatened my personal agency, my personal safety. And some of my professors were like, okay, contact DPSS, contact the campus police. But I can't do that because they make me feel extremely unsafe. They cuffed my friend to the ground. They ripped my friend's hijab off. They laugh at us. They take videos of themselves while we're in the background protesting, and they're like kind of like acting cute and cool, and they don't make me feel protected. The university administration to this point has done absolutely nothing to ensure our protection and our safety and our success as students. We advocated for in so many different ways, through sit-ins, through actions, through emails, through phone calls, phone banks. We have exhausted all options to get an initial meeting with administration, to have them hear us, to have them listen to us, to have them hear our demands and validate our experiences in our pain. And it wasn't until our bodies were brutalized and the public image of the university was threatened that they even agreed to this meeting. And even then, they gave us nothing. We have been advocating for months now to have a meeting with the president of the university, President Santaono. And after the police brutality, after the various attacks, after police have literally like went to people's houses and knocked on their doors, threatening them, after so many different terrible things to endure as college students, we have yet to receive this meeting. We have yet to actualize and materialize, the meeting with the president. And just to exemplify the kind of disparity in who gets his ear, obviously, like, a part of, like, all of this college organizing scene is, like, flyers. Like, we make flyers, different infographics, and hang them around the university. And, like, both sides, like, the Zionist and the pro-Palestinian students in our coalition do flyering. And basically, there were, like, 2-3 videos of people that aren't really associated in our leadership by any means, and we don't really know or have identified them, were ripping off, like, posters that the Zionists hung up about, like, the kidnapping, the kidnap posters that everyone,
Yeah.
They're so unoriginal because, like, they have, like, one group, like, one national, like, org that makes these posters, and all of them print out the same ones when we're, like, kind of, like, busting our butts, like, make new information all the time. It's kind of, like, really funny. But essentially, like, these posters, like, their posters, like, few of them were ripped down. And a day after, there is a mass email sent out by the Board of Regents and the president saying that this will not be tolerated. We will not tolerate
They're ripping off the posters.
Okay. Anti-Semitism, whatever, and ripping off the flyers. That's completely unacceptable. But I'm like, is it completely acceptable for your cop to put his knee on my friend's neck? That's acceptable, but ripping off flyers is not in Ann Arbor, of course. That's kind of like what we have, essentially what we have learned. In the first email, like, emails are very, very exciting thing to receive in your inbox from the university president, because they're always interesting, The first email that was sent out to the university students and faculty on the Palestinian plight didn't even mention the word Palestine once. Didn't even mention the word Gaza once. Nothing. It said, it kind of focused on how, Israelis died and they're being attacked and they're being threatened. And I'm so sorry if you're a Jewish student and feel threatened on campus.
Really?
Yeah. And we will not tolerate racism or anti-Semitism in any form. Without a single mention of the rising Islamophobia on campus, without a single mention of Palestine, the Arab identity, or anything else. And that was outrageous. So we organized a sit-in in front of the president's house on campus, and while hundreds of us were there, and this is not Arab students, actually the smallest demographic of people at our protest are Arab students. Our protests are very much multicultural and not very Muslim or Arab focused. Anyway, there are a bunch of his students on his lawn, outside of the fences of his lawn, on the president's house. And we were kind of holding up posters and signs that say we're outraged by the email he sent. While we're there, he sends an email saying, "I don't take my words back."
No way.
I swear. Like, I'm so serious. He's like, "I stand firmly with my words that I..."
You guys received the email while you guys...
While we're there, we received it. I'm like, oh, he's going to finally say something and we're going to go home because it's really cold and it's raining. And we read it and I'm like, this guy's not serious. Like, are you serious? And so...
That's crazy.
that happens and we're there. And it was so demeaning. It was so, like, humiliating. Because also, like, aside from all of, the things that we deal with on the outside, we're also students. And this is like midterm final season, and it was like hard. It was so hard to, like, be there. just because of like life circumstances, but so many people were there because they cared so much to be there. They cared enough to like invest their time and their energy to be there, and it was such a letdown to kind of receive that reaction from administration. And then the doxing. We formed this coalition where we're doing this work, and the campus petition thing happens between the pro-Palestine ballot and the Zionist ballot, and they do a lot of crazy stuff to advertise. They do the plane thing. They also like do phone banking. They're basically soliciting people and bribing them to vote. Like, okay, vote, and then I'll give you a pizza. Or like, vote, and I'll give you this.
I saw the trucks that have signs.
They had the trucks.
Pictures of students.
Doxing truck. Yeah, for sure. They use that money to and it was external funding to kind of mobilize for their ballot. And what we did, essentially, I'm not going to say we because I was not involved in this, our coalition wrote an email, and it was actually written by 2 Jewish allies, the email. And it was basically like talking about our ballot and what it means and why people should vote. And then this email was sent to a university administrator, which approved of it and sent it to the university. So essentially, every student in the university, or most students in the university, received an email about our ballot and encouraging them to vote. And so Zionists got a hold of this and got outraged. Like, how could you do this? This is like legal. It wasn't. It was approved by a university administrator. And that
the administrator get fired?
We don't know yet. We don't know who it is, to be honest. Like,
okay.
It's someone that was working with like some other group of people within the coalition. Anyway, so this happens, and students at the university that are Zionist, most of their organizing work is kind of done in partnership with like adults, like adult residents of the city of Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. And these adults are the ones that are running and planning their campaigns. Like, we had like a demonstration where like there's like 40 or I don't know how many baby strollers for like the 40 invisible beheaded babies. They were like lined up outside, and it wasn't like that event and that demonstration that they had wasn't organized by students. It was organized by external, folk who are not university faculty or administration or students. Like, they were just like from the community. And all of their funding and all like most of their mobilizing was done through external like sources and bodies. And so like this happens, and people receive this email, and they go crazy, and this group gets funded by the ADL, which is the Anti-Defamation League, and it's like a very it funds platforms like Canary Mission and other doxing adjacent things that like threaten the employability and the safety and security of students mobilizing for Palestine. And so Twitter gets a hold of this, and they in the email heading it said Tahrir Coalition, like dear, like whatever, like that was like the heading that the email was sent from Tahrir Coalition. So in the tweet, what they do is they crop off the part where it says Tahrir Coalition and just write the rest of the email. Like they just like tweet the rest of the email. And the tweet goes something like these 2 students, or like the student group SAFE, which is my student group, or the group that I'm involved in, sent out this email, and they stole student emails, and this is illegal, and they it was an incriminating tweet. It was saying that we stole student emails, and it's illegal and basically incriminating us. And they said 2 students that are identified to be a part of SAFE are Noor Sami and Salma. And they use my full government name, and with that information, my like whatever, it's like it puts like obviously jeopardizes like our identity and everything else. And they put our pictures. And so like they cropped off the part where it says Tahrir Coalition to make it sound like our student group was the one that sent out the email, when it was not. Like Selma and I, we're not involved in sending out the email. I personally did not even receive the email. I was like, going back to the Wednesday night. It was like the first time I'm finally on grind again, and I'm like doing work. And then Sunma calls me and tells me like, oh, this Twitter page just put her pictures on there, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's the second goal in 1 year. Come on, like 2 in 1,
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And so, so that happened, and a lot of things followed that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take a water break.
Yeah, you go ahead and take a water break. Definitely, I hope you're at home, you're listening. Again, this is kind of what's been going on at U of M and Arbor these last couple months. A lot of hecticness. I mean, Noor will tell you it's been going on for a while now, but like it kind of ramped back up these last couple months. We're going to go ahead and give a shout out now to Hanley International Academy, Ramsey, and then we're going to continue on to talk about the university's response and I guess, what do they want to see going forward, the students at U of M, that is. What do they want to see going forward from the university and everyone else? So shout out to Hanley International Academy.
Yusuf, you seem like a pretty smart man. What elementary/middle school did you get promoted from?
The one and only Hanley International Academy.
Hanley International Academy is a school that treats every student and staff like their own family. It's even in their vision statement, educating your child like our own. Their location is 2400 Denton Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. Their phone number is 313-875-8888. The academics there are great. The athletics there are great. Thank you to the staff and administrators at Hanley for educating our leaders of tomorrow.
All right, we're officially back, ready to keep this thing rolling. I want to make sure that we good on your end, Ramsey. All right, yep, we're good. By the way, I thought we were frozen for a second. All right, so basically, let me just quickly ask you guys just your thoughts, Hamza and Yusuf. Maybe start off with you this time, Yusuf. Just everything you've heard so far. Talk to me.
I mean, I'm literally listening to everything today, and I'm speaking. And if I'm in her position, if I'm in your position.
Yeah, well, how about that? Yeah, you know what? That's a better question. Is if you were in Noor's position, how would you react in the situation?
And what she's doing is probably something that I would not think of in reality because I don't know.
Yeah,
she's doing something that a lot of people would not do.
But imagine if your name is out there and you're on social media and it's being, I'm
gonna do what she did. Backtrack everything, see how it got there, and I'm gonna make sure I get my word in and make sure everything is settled down. Because, if I see my name, for example, on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, and saying these things and how they cut off what they said, dear, and
They put out like that. I'd make sure I'm backing myself up. You can't just listen to one side of the story and just not have your side of the story. And I feel like they're just they want to put the right people on the wrong side. Like they're trying to put the blame on the Palestinians, even though it's not really their fault. And yeah, that's really it.
And dude, so this is Ann Arbor, right? Ann Arbor campus. You said there's been a rise in Islamophobia and everything.
Oh yeah,
big time. So you guys feel like it's within every campus as well? Besides,
I guess it's maybe Noor. You probably know more than us than we do. I mean, I'm not in college anymore. I know at MSU it was a pretty decent, good amount of Arab/Muslim organizations. I don't know going over there in East Lansing, but he said it's in Wayne State. You're saying it's in Ann Arbor. Is this kind of what you guys have been getting from other students from other campuses?
yeah. There's a general trend of Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiment. And it's not isolated to Ann Arbor or to Michigan or something. You can see it in Columbia, where their SJP got, disbanded, at Harvard, at Berkeley, at Chapel Hill, and at universities across the country, and across the world. And this framing isn't something necessarily new, you know, but it comes in waves. When there's an event that happens where Muslims are vilified, it amplifies existing Islamophobia. Because I've lived in Ann Arbor now for 4 years, and I'm not gonna tell you oh, I'm so scared whenever I leave the house. No, it's a pretty friendly town. everybody there is like has some type of identity, and you know there's a coexistence that goes around, and it's a pretty safe area to live. It's actually like, I don't know on what, but it was ranked one of the safest places to live in
America.
In America. So it's not like a particularly dangerous place, and this danger exists on a structural level more so than if you're walking down the street and like someone yells at you because you wear hijab. Well, that's happened, of course. There's another story attached to this. It's happened very recently. But that's not like, you know, the like how Islamophobia is reflected most of the time. It's implicit. It's in classrooms where professors are censored. It's in discussion sections when someone mentions Palestine and their like comment gets kind of hidden from the rest of the students. It's implicit. It's implicit behaviors that censor students' opinions and faculty opinions, and also in mass surveillance that our community, especially here in Dearborn, has experienced for a long time now. Surveillance has been extremely amplified. I have personally never experienced such heavy police presence in the city and on campus ever. In the past 4 years, or when I used to visit, you know, in high school and when I was younger, there has never been this many cops everywhere, in every single building. And that, I know, like, it's supposed to make you feel safer because, oh, like, they're the executors of the law and they're gonna be there if something, but it doesn't. Because they look at me and I'm wearing a hijab, and even I wasn't there at Ruthven at the protest that, you know, my friends were like, you know, like being harassed at. I was in Toronto, but even if I wasn't there, they look at everyone that wears hijab and they think they, you know, we're all the same person.
Yeah.
So like they look at me like I'm a criminal, or like I was a person that they, you know, had to arrest or something, you know, whatever, or someone to like look out for a little bit more. You know, yeah. So it's kind of it's like that. And then also like this weekend I was in New York, and New York has their entire thing. Like organizers of New York are some of the most like, you know, like apt, you know, tactical organizers that I like have ever kind of witnessed working in the U.S. on Palestinian issues. We visited Columbia campus, and we visited, like, you know, we walked through Brooklyn where a lot of the government buildings are and whatever, courts and stuff. Every single one of them was barricaded. Universities were barricaded.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In Columbia, it was never like this before, where you have to like use your student card ID to like get into every single building. Like we wanted to use a bathroom when we weren't allowed to go because we didn't have a student ID card. Like these are public buildings, you know? Yeah. But that's kind of like been restricted. Some main subways are barricaded because of the protests and the activities that go on there. It's crazy. Like the surveillance and the suppression, repression, and censorship are some more implicit forms of Islamophobia that have been amplified with this wave of violence. It's very interesting to kind of like probe into this and kind of think about it in terms of how that affects communities and how that affects communication. Yeah. Because we come from places where central intelligence is really strong. You know, people in the Middle East that have lived under dictatorship, for example. People that are from Egypt. Let's go, you know, stop being a little vague, go into a more prominent example. Egypt, as many people often neglect, is a dictatorship. Hamid al-Sisi is a dictator, and he oppresses and suppresses and censors and surveils and beats and imprisons his people. And he's been doing this for years. And the reason he's successful in what he does is the mass surveillance that he operates under is so strong, where, you know, there's a system of like, oh, I have informants everywhere. Like, don't trust your neighbor because your neighbor might be working for the police and the police are going to inform this branch and then you're going to get arrested. And so people are scared to speak to their neighbors. They're scared to speak to their family. They're scared to speak in classrooms. They're scared to speak in mosques. They're scared to speak in schools. You develop this central intelligence that's so strong to the point where you fear speaking out. You fear you have to like, kind of like think about it before you protest and take any action, because that'll be your life, and so that kind of similar structure that we observe in places like Egypt, where the central intelligence is so strong and has been an extremely effective tool at like, like dismantling the spirit of revolution and the spirit of like liberation. And there's the quote that kind of like we've been really internalizing recently, is that Palestine is freeing us. In Egypt, protests are not allowed. They're like kind of banned by Sisi and his goonies. And so when all this happened, like Egyptians took to the streets and they were protesting and they were loud about it, and they were protesting for Palestine, which isn't against El-Sisi, so he allowed it, a little bit. There was still police presence and there's still violence and arrests, but it was a little more acceptable than if they were to protest against him directly.
Yeah.
But what the people in Egypt started doing is, while they're chanting for Palestine, is they started to say freedom, liberation, bread,
Yeah.
And that's, we talked about the central intelligence in Egypt. On a smaller scale, it exists in our individual communities, in our individual lives. What websites like Canary Mission that dock students and professors and organizers and like, different smaller sites, maybe not smaller, I think anti-Semitism, watch list site that I was doxxed on has like 2 million followers. So they don't have a small base, but what they operate on is, or what they bank on, is that through doxing and through threatening employability and safety, that they are going to be able to weaken the resolve for liberation. They're going to be able to make people fear speaking out. They're going to make people have second thoughts about going to protest. They're going to have, make people have like, question do a like double spin before, posting something about Palestine, because, this can be screenshotted and posted, and that could be doxed. And, my family is, it comes from a place where, political, discussion and discourse gets them arrested. And so there's this fear that already exists in our communities that they kind of like seek to bring out, and they seek to amplify this fear and work on the base of that existing fear to suppress us further.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, like, basically a lot of countries and places, and that's how they kind of execute it and work it. So I completely understand. So I guess now, what do you want to see from U of M? Like, what do you want to see from the university? And like, I guess where do we currently stand? I know you said you've been trying to get this meeting with the president. Like, how's that been going? And then, what do you want to see exactly from the university? By the way,
real quick, when you mentioned the president, and I'm happy you mentioned it. You reminded me. You mentioned that you want that meeting with him. And how often do students have the availability to have a meeting with the president?
Yeah. So technically, the president has office hours.
Okay.
And we, at both of our protests actually, we wanted to go to his office hours and talk to him. That's what we were doing. That is, we were exercising the right of being in a public building to go speak to our president, who needs to hear and work with us. But we were banned from doing this, and we were prevented from doing this. And so like the office hours is kind of a front to like say, oh, I'm here, I'm available for you, but not really, not available to you, whatever, but available to everyone else. Okay, yeah, so just in general, I guess, after like the doxing thing, the university sent an email 2 weeks after, didn't mention our name, but they said that, oh, this is crazy. You know, and the email itself was really funny. It was like really poorly written, and like you think about Ann Arbor, and it's like, oh, you know, whatever. And it was like the president repeated the phrase "it must stop" like 4 times, like after every single paragraph. So it was like kind of like a haiku adjacent like, poem. It was really funny, but yeah. So like what happened was, yeah, he sent out the email signed with all but one regent, saying that, oh, these students didn't actually steal emails, and that it was a university administrator that sent out the email. And basically, they canceled the student ballot that I told you about, the petition, pro-Palestine and Zionist petition. They canceled it. And
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a bad thing.
Okay.
For us. And by the way, the ballot that was happening had the highest number of votes in university record on a referendum. And basically, they canceled this one and the ability to start another one in the future. Basically, they were saying that we're overriding, the central student government, and we're gonna ban this type of petition from ever going through again because it's divisive and polarizing. And he was like, my phone banks are going, off the charts, and I'm getting phone calls, and stop doing what you're doing. This is so polarizing. This is so divisive, and talking like this. And in the email, he said, we heard you. We hear you. You don't have to do any more petitions. You don't have to do any more protests. We hear you. But that was very ironic because he has still to this day not met with us. What have you heard?
Yeah.
From who have you heard? Who do you serve? And so that was the university's reaction to the doxing. They still have not made a public statement, clearing our names as students of the university. I personally have received streams of hate mail, DMs, threatening DMs. In the beginning of all this, I received like a DM from a random account on Instagram saying, oh, I know where your 11:30 class is, or something like along the lines of like you're whatever, like I know you, I know who you are. And I don't know if it was like a trolling thing or like whatever, but I was receiving so many messages on all platforms, and it was scary. Like for a good minute, I was not able to leave my apartment. I skipped classes. I emailed my professors, and like thankfully, alhamdulillah, like they were really accommodating and they understood, because I'm in the anthropology department. Everyone in anthropology is cool. Just take that as a rule, but it like my friends didn't have like an experience where like most of the teachers, some of the teachers were not as accommodating. But I personally, I couldn't go to classes for a long time for the first 3 weeks of it, and when I needed to, like for an exam or a quiz, like I would have like my friends escort me to and from classes for the first 2 weeks. I left the house a few times, and like one or two of those times, before like the cops started to like get really, really violent, I had DPSS escort, like the police escorted me to class. It was real.
Like walk you or
like
drive you?
Like walk me to class. I'm not gonna get into a cop car.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I won't leave. No, I'm too scared to do that.
Yeah.
But it would be a cool ride. Like if I was driving, but yeah, it's like it was really scary. It was really scary, and they used my full government name on that, and like with that information, like you can access my home address, and you can like my sister like is home alone. She's little. Like I don't know if she's gonna open the door for who. And if the past month or so has taught us anything, is that people will go to crazy lengths to cause harm onto other people and to inflict harm onto like our community. And so I was scared. I was scared for my family. I was scared for my safety. I was scared for my future and for everything at the same time. It was really debilitating, actually. It was not a good time. And I think that the only reason that they really even like sent that email to begin with, even if they didn't mention our names, even if they briefly mentioned the doxing, was because like they were scared that we were going to go official with this and file a lawsuit against them. And
is that something that's still looking to happen, or?
Right now, that is something that is being considered. That is something on the table for me personally.
So, what is the current state of like the campus right now? I feel like from all this conversation, I was hoping like there was going to be like a good turn of the corner, but it seems like that we were still at a standstill in a way.
Yeah. So
in terms of like just addressing this issue and the safety of the students, it sounds like there's still ongoing safety issues as well. Like, what's the current state of U of M Ann Arbor once you guys go back to school in January?
Yeah. So like as I mentioned before, this is from the very beginning, from the onset of this violence, we knew that we had to build endurance for the long run because this is not going to end anytime soon. Unfortunately, it's not. It was a very hard thing to accept, but it's not going to end anytime soon. And so we have to like prepare ourselves for this to like take a while, as it has so far. And things have not, unfortunately, gotten better. Things have been increasingly getting worse, but we have grown to work around this and protect ourselves better. We have learned to like avoid altercation. Like, for example, our last demonstration, if the police were to tell us to like leave a certain area, we wouldn't stay there and enact civil defiance. We would like leave because we're not trying to get hurt again. Yeah. Because like the first time we got hurt and we got abused and we got like, subject to police violence, nothing protected us. Like there was no mechanism of our protection under university administration and or anything else. And so we know moving forward that we can't like always enact civil disobedience because we don't have like a net to fall back on. And so we've been kind of modifying our approach to be one that reflects endurance and for this to stretch out a little while longer. A lot of my friends personally, like we have a sisterhood group chat for like Muslim women on campus. And we kind of like developed the system, like a buddy system where, hey, if you're going to be studying in this building for a long time, like I'm here, I'm going to walk you home, or like, do you need someone to walk you home or whatever? But we also like share stories on that of like encounters that we have, or if like there's a dangerous or like a weird person standing on a specific corner of campus or something. One of the girls she was like walking. She was walking, on State Street, which is like the main street on campus, and someone literally ran through her with a bike and didn't stop. Another girl was like also walking to class, holding a bunch of stuff, and someone threw a football at her. It like in so many things. Like there's this man who, I don't want to say these stories and get too specific and like tell people stories, but there's a lot of violence that we are being subject to as Muslim women. And I don't know if this is the place to say this, but I feel like generally there's also a trend where Muslim women are the ones on the forefront of this movement. We're the ones that are on the front line. We're the ones that are getting arrested. We're the ones that are the most outspoken. And Muslim men have really been taking a back seat. I feel like
I agree, by the way.
Completely like this is something that I've like observed so intensely. And it's to the point where like they argue whether or not protests are haram because of free mixing or other things like this. And they have debates with the use of hadith and Quran and verses why women shouldn't be in specific spaces that like put them, expose them to violence. One of the comments was, hey, please tell the sisters to not have altercations with the police. None of us choose to be abused. None of us choose to be thrown across the freaking room by a 6'4" cop. Like that doesn't happen because we want it to happen. It happens because you're not there. And some of the moments that have really just kind of like amplified this feeling within me is at the times where Muslim women do get hurt and do get subject to violence, the people that are protecting us are non-Muslim. Like one of my friends, he is non-Muslim. And when one of my other friends was getting her hijab ripped off, he did not look, and he used his body as a shield from the 4 cops that were around her to like protect her. While Muslim men were having debates on WhatsApp on whether or not they should be there and why they shouldn't be there. That's embarrassing to me. And that's embarrassing because like to us as Muslims, I feel like, and this is definitely like, I don't want to like, you know, like intensify any existing narratives and stereotypes because it's kind of so difficult to talk about like community specific issues without like, you know.
First of all, this could be like a whole show.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And I'm over here debating like if I should make this the clip, but it's all up to you. You know what I'm saying? You could try to make it a clip of the week, or you know, but it's all up to you. But continue on, say what you got to say. You know, obviously, like I said, this is something that we can like even extend into a whole show. I actually might look into maybe even actually having this as a whole show, just because it's a good conversation to have, because it is a topic that's been going around in the communities.
It for sure is. I feel like Islam to me, and alhamdulillah wa shukr, like our community on campus, other like outside of all of these recent happenings, has completely changed my life as a person. I have grown so much closer to my deen, and I owe that to like, you know, rifqa salihah. And I have amazing friends that if we're studying together and Asr hits, we drop all the books and we go pray together. And the community and programming that exists on campus within the MSA and leadership on MSA is so amazing and have been so like instrumental in amplifying all of our actions and everything else that we've been doing. So it's not to undermine the Muslim community and the cohesiveness that we have. It's beautiful. But then when you go to Islamic lectures and you are learning the Sidr of the Prophet, and you are learning you know, the legacies of the Sahaba and the Ahlul Bayt, and you are learning the glorious legacies of these people, that the first Muslim communities, how they grew into Islam, and how like about the different battles, and about the perseverance and the tawakkul that they had, and the prophetic character that they embodied. This concept of prophetic character is not just, you know, it doesn't only encompass your proximity to adhering to the feasible principles of Islam and the commandments of Islam, of, you know, prayer and zakat and siyam and, you know, hajj and stuff, the main things. Prophetic character to me is so much deeper than that. It's being able to hear these stories and not just hear them to know them and to use them in conversation, but to apply them to your person, to actualize and materialize them on your body and how you act and how you treat people in public and in private. Prophetic character, when you hear traits of the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his etiquette in battle, his etiquette toward disbelievers, and when you hear the legacy of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, who is this person that we learn from in strategy and in battle. They don't exist just as quotes. They don't exist just as examples that you tell people when you want to emphasize Islamic knowledge that you've gathered. They're alive, and they should be alive within you. You should be inspired by the legacy of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You should be inspired by the legacy of Hamza, by the legacy of Umar, by the legacy of Abu Bakr, by the legacy of Amr ibn As, of all these amazing Sahabi. They should be alive within you. And if they were here, they would not be debating whether or not a fight for justice is something they should be a part of. They would be on the ground. They would be on the face of this. They would make sure that no one who is vulnerable is hurt. They would not stand idly by and prioritize their own health and their own employability and their own ego above principle. And this is what I see happening.
Go ahead and give that a round of applause, Ramsey. I think if you're okay with it, that might just be the clip right there. But, Listen, Noor, I mean, I've obviously I've followed you now, you know, and I've seen this stuff. She's not just saying this because there's a camera in her face. She's about it. She takes action. She stands for what she believes in. That's why I think I titled this "Stand for What's Right" or "Taking a Stand." I think, you know, because you know, if there was a way of like I could just quickly tell someone the kind of person that Noor is that she's the type of person that will take a stand for what's right and what she believes in. And I agree with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. This was a discussion in a group of a lot of men, and you know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't share my 2 cents because I wasn't about to, you know, go back and forth with people who all agreed on the same concept and the idea. And you know that it was something that was discussed. Was the, you know, that you know should people be out there protesting? You know, the conversation became, you know, people are protesting during times of salah and they're not salli. You know, and it's just a lot. And I guess it's another one of those conversations that need to be had within the community. But one thing that I did realize is that I think women are in the forefront of this issue right now, and you know, kind of tells us where we stand as a community. And you know, like you mentioned, it's time. You know, there's a time to, you know, put your ego in check and stand up for what's right. And it's all about your intentions. I really do think that, like, you know, a lot of people do go to protest and it seems like they just want to take photos, you know, and then just want to be whatever. But you gotta put egos to side, and you know, it's all about your intentions, and it's all about a person's intentions. And you can tell when somebody's intention is pure and for sure in it for the right reasons. And that's why we had to bring in Noor on this conversation. And I guess the final question I want to ask you, Noor, is again, is a motivational advice. I'm already adamant on that being the clip, you know, so I was going to record you and make this the clip too. But you know, I guess the motivational advice for any college student out there, let's say they're listening and might not be from U of M, but any college student out there who may be facing, you know, defamatory actions or prejudice or racism or violence because of standing up for what's going on in Palestine, I guess what advice would you give them and what would you tell them?
I guess people that have been in organizing spaces for Palestine have always been familiar with the concept that the odds are not in our favor. The odds are not in our favor. The artillery is not in our favor. The funding and financing and world and media opinions are not in our favor. And that's not the end of the world. That doesn't faze us. That doesn't mean that our actions will not make an impact. And that shouldn't discourage us from continuing on the plight of justice and truth seeking. And, you know, in the beginning of all of this, I remember a talk that I listened to with Dr. Amr Suleiman, where he was talking about Khandaq and how Khandaq is the Battle of Khandaq is, I guess, the most specific example that we can take inspiration from in parallel to Gaza. Khandaq, what essentially happened there was the Muslims in Medina were outnumbered. They were trapped in an area where the only protection they had was like a 3-mile long trench. And they were starved. They were deliberately starved. Our Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was bloated, not the type of bloating that you experience when you're full, the type of bloating you experience from hunger. His stomach was poking out and he had stones wrapped around it. Our Prophet was starved. Mothers were starved. People were getting weaker, and unlike Badr, where, you know, when Muslims asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help and made dua for victory, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them a visible example through the angels that descended and helped them win this battle. In Khandaq, when they made dua for protection and sustenance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send them a visible sign. He did not send them thousands of angels to fight the battle and give them that momentum right then and there. He increased them in iman internally. He gave them internal sustenance, and they were with Allah for for a long time to where they internalize the sustenance and let that move through them and motivate them. And what we need to learn from this is that, and what we learned from them is that they said hasbi Allahu ni'mal wakeel, and they got stronger. They were able to continue forth and succeed in amplifying their iman. And aside from hasbi Allahu ni'mal wakeel, what we learn from the Battle of Khandaq and what we can model, what we can use as applied prophetic character in this context is, how do I explain it? We don't always have to have a visible sign. We don't always have to have international support. We don't have to have the most money. The odds don't have to be in our favor. The Muslims then were outnumbered. The Muslims then were starved, as we are right now in Gaza, as our brothers and sisters are right now in Gaza, and we are outnumbered as the Muslims were then. And people in Gaza are not receiving signs of angels descending onto them. But they have been with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala long enough to know that He will sustain them. They have unshakable, unbreakable fortitude of iman. And that is something that we should also take and strive for and allow this to motivate us and to perpetuate us further into this cause and further into the strive for liberation. And it gets a little demotivating sometimes when you're in these spaces and you feel like everything and all the odds are lined up against you. But if you are able to really internalize this idea that you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough and He loves you enough to sustain you in the face of any adversity, you will always win. And our martyrs are not lost. They're not dead. Whether they're in Palestine or Yemen or Masr or the Congo or in Sudan, if they died on La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, they are not dead and they're with Allah and they've attained victory. And with their life and with their victory, we must emerge victorious. And that's the only option we have. And that should motivate us above anything else.
Ramzi, can you please give that another round of applause? Noor Sami, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Noor, I'm not gonna lie to you. You are an inspiration. You are a very strong-willed person. And I applaud you for that. Keep up the great work. You and your whole organization, Tel Salma as well, and everybody over there. You guys are doing an awesome job. Hold your ground. Change might not happen during your time, Noor, but at least you are, continuing the fight, and inshallah over time, this will become something that we can look back on and say, hopefully, inshallah, will never happen again. Any final words from you guys, Hamza and Yusuf?
I learned a lot, man. It was a nice show.
She's a young professor right here, man. She's looking to
No record of how many clips we got today.
I know, right? Like I'm over here struggling, man. Like I'm sitting here thinking in my head, I'm like, dang, man, because YouTube only allows 1 minute, and I'm like, I always try to get it within one. How am I gonna do this? Because like you called out the men, like then you went and dove into. I'm like, dang, man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, man. We have to pull out a couple. Inshallah, you guys, obviously the video is there for you too, Noor. Like, I feel like, we usually try to do one from each show, but, obviously you can pull out 20 if you want. And if you want to invite us as a collaborator, we'd be more than happy to collaborate with you just because. But any final comments from you, Noor? Any final things?
No, thank you all for giving me the space to share this.
I felt like you've been holding this in, Noor, and like you finally got the chance. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much, Noor. Honestly, I appreciate you so much for even, coming on. She'd be driving from Ann Arbor to come to the show, and we appreciate her to come on, so thank you. Again, shout out to everybody that's in the building. Ramzi, thank you for being in the back. Hamza T, Yusuf, and of course Noor as well. Shout out to the sponsors: Balkan, Juice Box, Qahwah House, BC Adhesives, Specialty Medical Center, Hanley International Academy, and Sidr Bees. This is what we do. We try to have shows that involve the community, revolve around the community, that talks about topics maybe that impacts the community. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all under Oz Media. You can listen to our shows on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. Again, this is what we do. This is typically the kind of shows that we have. We hope that you enjoy this conversation. This was season 3, episode 14 of The Movement.
The movement.
We'll be back. I don't know if we're going to be back next week, Saturday, but we'll be back the following Saturday, inshallah. Follow us. We got shows on Sundays and typically Tuesdays as well. So thank you all for watching or eventually watching. Be safe out there. Continue to fight the battle that needs to be fought. And always, 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 and forever, inshallah, a free Palestine. And we hope that you guys all have a good